Cool.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the introduction and also for inviting us here to give a small presentation about indeed what is Instagreen and yeah, what are we working on and how did things go since that we moved to Barcelona. So, well, let me introduce myself. I'm Anneke, one of the founders of Instagreen. And as you mentioned, indeed, I'm an industrial design engineer from the TU Delft. This is also where I met Remco. And in 2007, we decided that it was time for a new adventure and moved to Barcelona. And this is where I founded, indeed, my first company, Stalk Sport SL, which, as you mentioned, was for head protection for field hockey players. And I also worked in Barcelona at the same time as a freelance designer for several years. Prior to starting Instagreen, I worked for 5 years as a senior innovation consultant at Bax & Company in Barcelona, where I was responsible for the projects that covered the international life sciences and agri-food sectors. But after years of consultancy, I really wanted to get my entrepreneurial hands dirty again, so to say. And that, for me, was basically the start of Instagreen.
So, hi, I'm Remco. I'm a Master of Science in Architecture from the TU Delft, just like Joe mentioned. During my studies, I started my first company in architectural visualization, so making 3D renders of buildings. And once we went to Barcelona, I founded several startups, mostly in software development, and most of them failed gloriously, which is now knowledge that we used to start Instagreen. And maybe you can tell a little bit more about Instagreen.
Yeah. And let me go to the next slide. So Instagreen is an urban hydroponic farm in the city center of Barcelona. In a moment, Remco will explain what hydroponics is. But in short, we mainly grow microgreens, occasionally also herbs, leafy greens, and edible flowers. And we do that in a controlled indoor climate in multiple layers, as you can see here on the picture, but also right behind us. And just to make sure that everybody understands the microgreen part of that, these are some examples of microgreens, which is basically the beginning of a plant that is grown from a seed. They are very high in nutrient levels and also very powerful in flavor. And that is just for you to know what we're talking about for one part. Then, well, we founded Instagreen basically because we were fed up with the huge impact that food production and food consumption have on the planet. And we started investigating what we could do about that. And after some years of, well, R&D as a hobby, we actually started an urban vertical indoor hydroponic farm and also made it our mission to supply fresh and nutritional local food to everyone while doing good to the planet and people. There are reasons for each part of this, of the urban vertical indoor hydroponic farm. The reason for us to grow in an urban area is that on average, vegetables travel 2,400 kilometers from farm to consumer, and that causes an extra 12% of emissions prior to consumption. While the very local farm to fork produce eliminates this kind of transport and its emissions, and it also allows consumers to eat super fresh vegetables. Then the reason for us to go vertical is that almost half of the planet's land surface is currently used for agriculture, and cultivating in layers reduces this usage a lot. And that frees up space for nature, biodiversity, permaculture, all sorts of different better things we can do with this planet. And then the reason to grow indoor is that conventional agriculture often uses pesticides and contaminating chemicals to protect their crops. But when you cultivate in a controlled environment, you can produce very sustainably without such pesticides. And then the reason to use hydroponics, which later on we'll know more about it, is, well, in short, water. 70% of global water consumption is used for farming, causing rivers and lakes to dry up, creating harsh environments for animals to survive, and hydroponic cultivation diminishes the water consumption with 90% or even more through circular systems. Now, the reason for us to grow microgreens is basically because they're a very interesting product with really great health benefits. They're very high in nutrient levels. They're also easy to grow and very fast in growth. Within 7 to 20 days already you have full-grown microgreens. And because they are so small, you can have a lot of layers on top of each other, and you have quite little space that you need for the cultivation. They're also an economically interesting product, and all that together makes it basically a great product to start an urban farm with.
Now, obviously, this is knowledge that we now have, but during the first years, we did a lot of tests and experiments with growing crops in a more sustainable way, which was an interesting journey because, like we said, we are engineers from the TU Delft, and we knew absolutely nothing about plants, just how to eat and cook them. All the plants on our balconies died, so we weren't the typical green finger people. However, being engineers and designers did prove to be handy later on because we didn't approach the challenges in a more conventional agricultural way. So basically between 2012 and 2014, we started experimenting with various forms of hydroponic and aeroponic cultivation methods in our balconies and bathrooms. You see some examples here on the left. And basically we were trying to grow crops like lettuces because we thought that would be a nice thing to start with. Now, for those who don't know what hydroponics or aeroponics or aquaponics even are, is that basically the ponics are growing soilless in a soilless medium or not in the ground, but the different types try to replace the soil in a certain way and try to get nutrients to the roots of the plants while they're growing. So aeroponics, like the word air says, it is spraying a mist of air and water to the roots. You can see an example here in where it says 2013, which is a nice way to grow, but it is very, how do you say, susceptible to things that can go wrong. So if there's not enough, if the plants don't get enough time in the air, or they don't get enough nutrients, they will die at a certain point because there's no mass of water and nutrients to support them to live.
Yeah, those who are living in Spain might know that every once in a while you do have a power cut. That basically means your plants are dead if you don't have a big battery, making sure that there's still that mist of water for the roots.
Now, hydroponics is something that you see more on the left. It's actually a group of different types of growing methods, but basically it means that you have the roots of the plant hanging in water, or you have a regular amount of water going through to the roots every now and again, and that can be done in different ways. And then you have Aquaponics, which is a system in which there's a combination of growing plants in soil and using the residue from
soil.
Without
soil.
The substitute for the soil, and have the residue of the plants going to water where there's fish that consume the residue, and that produce feces that you can use as fertilizer for your plants. This is in a very short way told what the different ponics actually are. Now, after some successful DIY experiments, we thought it would be nice to take it to a more professional level. This was July 2015. This is when we started Instagram. Now, In 2016, we got selected for the Climate Kick, which is a European accelerator program for startups that focus on climate innovation, in which the TU Delft and Wageningen University are also involved. And we started there designing a growing box for lettuces, and the one that you saw on the previous slide. And during the time, we also obtained a Horizon 2020 European subsidy of about 50,000 euros to investigate the possibilities of starting an urban farm in the city and do all the logistics and investigate how that would go. Now, this was also the moment where we started working together with a restaurant in Barcelona, a super coffee and food store. They had a place where we could start growing. It was a very small space. And then this is what we call Farm 1, or our first farm. It's like you see the guy, this was the space, and you see here somebody working, one of our first interns working on growing plants. Again, by that time, we started to know a little bit more, but we didn't know a lot still. So we did a lot of experiments. Now, this was also the moment that we found out that producing lettuce was actually not a good business. This is because they take a long time to grow, they are very cheap, and they're not so interesting for chefs, so there's not a good business model behind it. You cannot sell your crops for a large amount. So these are things that we were learning during that startup time. And throughout the development of InstaGreen, we became more and more aware of the need for testing things quickly, like the idea of growing cups or lettuces. And we learned to only spend time and money and effort on things that have actually impact on your business. For instance, instead of spending 40,000 euros on an injection mold with which you can make nice plastic covers, we became very handy making models with just a piece of foam, heating cannon, and a vacuum cleaner, like you see on the right, which is inside our house, which became very handy because we thought we had the perfect 3D model, and later for one of the growing cups. But later we found out that we needed to change a lot, actually. So we were glad that we didn't spend those 40,000 euros. Now, around 2018, when we were like almost 2 years in the Climate Kick knowledge and doing the first farm, we built our second farm because the first farm, it was just a small room and it became too small. So we built our second farm where we learned that there can be a lot of labor involved in farming at a larger scale. So we had this larger place, we had already like 20, 30 clients, and it was actually a lot of work to water the plants, to take care of them, etc. So then we started looking for solutions that automated certain tasks, like watering. And we noticed that a lot of urban farmers and systems, they focus on high-tech solutions like sensors or applications for measuring and taking care of everything automatically. But we also noticed that they add a lot of extra cost to the crop production itself. But they don't add the same amount of value to a small local farm that we are. So we decided to start to develop our own cultivation system. It's a more automated system that was low tech. So when you have a power cut, not all your plants die. And also as foolproof as possible, because at that time we had like 8 people walking around, all kinds of interns from all kinds of agricultural universities, design universities, and everybody had to be able to manage and work on it within a week, because after 6 weeks or 8 weeks, they would be gone already. So it had to be foolproof. You see, by the way, the system that we developed, you see that on the right. And developing our own system actually allowed us to produce very efficient at a more competitive price. So we grew as a company throughout 2019. We moved to an even bigger space with the help of an investor. This is the space that we are in now. Like we said, like we have this space, we have another space, we have a nice, beautiful shop in the front. And at the start of 2020, we had about 200 restaurants and bars and hotels here in Barcelona as clients.
And then Friday the 13th happened. Friday the 13th of March 2020 to be exact, which basically was the day from one day to the next, all our clients were forced to close their doors. No more orders were coming in. We had to give away all our stock, and we basically stopped production. But at the same time, we also realized that we could use this as an opportunity. There were already a growing interest in our cultivation systems and also our processes. And now we finally could dedicate the time to help other people to set up their farm. So over the years, we basically, sort of accidentally became farmers. And now we could go back again to being engineers and developing products, doing research, and sharing all the knowledge that we had gained over the past years. So we developed a online course for people to learn how to grow all sorts of microgreens at home during lockdown, which so far is not our most successful product. But we also developed a 3D complete training, 3-day, sorry, complete training for people who want to grow microgreens professionally, which does seems to be a big success. We now already trained over 30 people from all over the world, and more people are signing up for either group trainings or private trainings, or they want to train their whole team. We also work together with the Universidad de Barcelona on research projects for nutrients and microgreens. And we also supply our cultivation systems to other farmers to grow microgreens locally in their city. And the main thing that they appreciate from the system is the simplicity that it has and the balance between automating on the one hand and keeping things as simple and low tech, and therefore also foolproof and affordable as possible. So when we look at the future, we basically recently made this pivot. So our plans for the future are still taking shape. But in general, we will work on sustainable food solutions for small to medium-sized farms, because we really noticed for ourselves that is where there really is a mismatch between either doing it yourself in a very low-tech way or having a huge farm that grows on a very high scale. So we want to further elaborate our professional trainings. We're also working on a new version of our cultivation system, and we work together with chefs on different food innovation projects. And we are investigating the possibilities to work together with NGOs on projects to fight hidden hunger. So our mission is still pretty much the same. It's only that we now realize we don't have to do all that supplying of fresh and nutritional local food to everyone. We can also help other entrepreneurs to join forces and to basically make that a reality. So if you have any ideas and thoughts and suggestions for us to help us in doing that, then please don't hesitate to contact us.
Thanks a lot. Perfect. By the way, that is the most amazing background graphic I've seen. It looks so real.
So vivid, right?
Looks like you can eat it.
Yeah, and we actually spoke to Annika and Remco last week, and there was absolutely nothing on those trays. It is amazing how quickly things grow. I don't want to lose you, but is there any chance we can get a closer peek at what's behind you?
Yeah, I think so.
Can I show? Well, at the top here you see.
This one, yeah.
So there's different ones, but I don't know if that means anything. There's cappuccino.
No.
No, it doesn't mean
No,
it.
so
But different plants, and you can all eat them. This is maybe the lower one. The bottom one, that's reddish daikon. Then the one above that is pea shoots. And they actually taste like really fresh summer pea shoot flavor. Above that is mustard. And then above that is still quite short. Colombarda.
Red cabbage.
Red cabbage.
so there.
And did you grow that for us or?
No, we have a.
Yeah, we actually have a
Yes,
surprise
we did,
for you.
Yes, we send you in an
We will
envelope.
send you.
No, we have a training coming up this weekend. So when we have a training, we basically make sure that there's the different stages of the plants to show how they grow and how everything works, and also different ways of growing that you can grow like this, just on a sheet of kitchen paper, but there's also in cups and with cellulose materials. Different
And
things.
like you mentioned, Joe, the speed of which microgreens grow is very fast. So if your entire crop goes wrong within 1 week, you already have new crops. So that is something that actually helps to generate a lot of green during a relatively short amount of time.
Okay.
Also in learning and research,
Yeah.
that's a handy thing.
Yes.
No, I can imagine. And hey, you mentioned power cuts, and someone commented, power cuts in Spain? No, it never happens. But as a startup in Spain, in Barcelona, what were the biggest challenges you faced as a startup?
As a startup in general, or well, I think
There's a couple of things.
yeah, I think in our case, maybe more specifically, like as an urban farm, this is something that the government doesn't really know what is an urban farm. Either it's a farm, which is outside of an urban area, or you are something urban, but the combination doesn't really exist. So all that with the legislation and finding ways in which you can do it, and to know basically what are the regulations for you. That is, well, it is still a challenge, basically. It has been, and it still is for people doing things on rooftops or whatever, everything out of the ordinary, just tick a box. I'm a supermarket, or I am a local bar. That is complicated.
It took us 1.5 years to actually find out what type of license or how we would be able to do this. We already were doing it, but we went from different public administration officials who said you cannot do it, to others that were more the agricultural public servants. And one of them said, guys, just do it and find out how you do it later. So this person was very helpful. And then after a while, we found one public servant that said, actually, you guys, you know what? You grow plants. Flower shop have plants, so you are a flower shop. Mm-hmm. So this is, I mean, it's all very new. People don't know about it. They don't, here in Spain, they're less familiar with microgreens. In the Nordics, people know more about it. Here, they don't know the product, so everybody's looking at you like they see fire burn when you talk about what you're doing.
We also had a question about fundraising, getting funds. How difficult was that for you?
Well, in the end, it was through, well, in Spain, I think it's more like you have to know people. It's not like, well, in the United States, for instance, it's so much more common to have investors go around.
Here we had a joke because we were in the startup scene here in Barcelona, obviously also in the Netherlands. But here the joke goes that investors in Spain think like banks, and banks, they don't think at all. So
well, they don't want to take risks.
So it's like they're very cautious. Investors here are tend to be very cautious, and they also, we had people saying, "Oh yeah, it looks interesting. I want to, I'd like to invest in it. 20,000 euros, and I want half of your stock or
your equity."
Yeah.
Did you invest your own money as well?
How do you mean?
Did you spend your own money first?
Yeah. It's, of
money
course,
and time.
Money and lots of time. Money and lots of time.
Mhm.
And actually, we found an investor that happened to be also one of a good friend that we have here that was our first landlord, actually. So he has a lot of property here in Spain, has an art studio, does a lot of aluminium manufacturing for art in all kinds of museums.
All sorts of different companies.
And we talked about what we were doing with him, and he was so enthusiastic about it that he wanted to participate. So that was, in the end, we've been to a lot of investment round, how do you say, investment?
Also through the Climate Kick program.
Yeah.
That's part of what Climate Kick does for startups.
Yeah. And no, in the end, we found the right person.
Gelukkig. Okay, that's good.
Very gelukkig, yeah.
We also had a question in the chat about competition, that people have noticed similar startups out there. How did you separate yourself from those other startups in the field?
Yeah, at first when we heard about other people growing microgreens in the same ways, that we were a bit like, oh, no, not they're taking over half of the market, etc., etc. We every once in a while, because of networks also, lost a client because basically, well, the other company happens to know the director of purchasing of that client. But it happened very, very few times that we actually lost clients because of others doing the same thing in Barcelona.
Yeah, the market here is still growing. So there are a few competitors, but they're not. There's no real fighting competition. It's all. I mean, there's a hippie guy growing microgreens on his balcony, half naked, and this is his brand. It's like, and birds are flying around, and this is nature. And there's people buying it, even though restaurants, they officially are not allowed to have soil in their kitchen while cooking. So ours is soilless, but there's still clients for him. But we respect each other, and he's a nice guy.
Yeah, and I think it's also like we're in the same battle in a way, because we're both working on producing things locally. So whenever you go into a restaurant and you would see one of the other people that are growing things locally, then for us, you go in there less aggressively to get that client. You're like, yeah, okay, you're already good, and well, there's other restaurants still to go for and find other clients that don't buy local yet.
And we also had a question specifically about the system you have. So the first question was about what percentage of your product price is energy?
Sorry?
Energy, very little.
This is one of the one of the first myths that we bust during our 3-day course. Actually, it's on the 3rd day when we do a calculation on business. But and this is one of those things that we learned during the entire startup phase, is that the first things that engineers, and we are engineers, so we're not talking down to our own people, but engineers tend to see all the bears on the road without actually checking if it's a bear, yes or no. So people start to solve the issue of lighting, water, etc., already before it's actually a problem. And what you see is that, I mean, the cost of the air conditioning is much higher than the cost of all the systems that we have here growing. Now, it would be different if we would start a marijuana farm. If we would start growing marijuana, then you need a lot of energy. But for
flowers
or that kind of stuff.
Remco, that's a better example.
It's the first question that everybody asks. Do you grow marijuana? No,
being Dutch in Spain, growing plants, that is a very common question.
Not yet. It depends on the business model, but no, that takes a lot of energy. But growing these kind of small plants doesn't take any energy at all. So the question was, what percentage? I think that the percentage of energy on 1 cup. So we have one green cup, which is the size of 10 by 9 or 12 by 9, something like that. It's like 2 cents or something like that, and we sell them for €3. Okay. What has a far bigger impact on your business is logistics. we have, again, during the 3-day course, we have written down all the costs that you have. And what you see is that man hours in logistics, handling of your clients, talking to them like, do you have this? No, we don't have that. Oh, do you then have this? And then half an hour later, they call you again. This kind of stuff takes way more time and does way more money than what you would save if you have a 5% more efficient lighting system. Mm-hmm. So this is why we actually build the method that we do. We look at the business as a whole instead of only the technology. And what we see is that this is why we call it a low-tech system. The technology doesn't have or the cost of technology or changing technology or adding application will only get you 5% extra crop growth, while getting a couple of extra clients or getting your clients to order more has a far bigger impact on your business. So it's much better to spend your time on sales than on trying to optimize for a couple of plants. So this is stuff that we learned.
And talking about your new customers, so we have a question here. What sizes do you need for beginner's farm, square meters? And then how much types of green? So what do you tell people in your course about that?
Well, we have like a standard pack that we say of 2 of those systems, and we have what we call a germination rack, which is 24 layers on half a square meters for the first couple of days when things are in the dark. And that is a really nice starting equipment to begin your farm and basically grow with that and have your, as they call, customer funded company. So not so much investing more and more to have a huge farm, but to start with something like that is a really nice way of setting up your first farm.
And what is the setup cost then, just from the equipment point of view?
The prices are, you're always
it's about 5,000 euros for one entire set. So
the set of 2 systems.
If you buy one system, that's 2,600 or 2,599, obviously. And if you buy a pack, then it's about 6,000. And this will give you a lot of stuff to grow. If you just want to grow for yourself, your family, and maybe the neighbors, don't buy a system like this, because this actually produces massive amounts every week. I mean, every layer is renewed every week or every 2 weeks. So you really grow large amounts.
And is it true, by the way, that the advantage of your type of growing versus farm growing is you don't have disease or insects?
Well, you do have, because it is inside a controlled environment, it's easier to combat it. But you always have a fruit fly that can fly in with you when you enter the door. So it's not that you have nothing of it, but it's far more easy to control. And it's not that they come from all around, from the soil, from the air, from everywhere. So yeah, it's a lot easier to control that.
Also, we use ecological seeds, so that means that they're not treated with gamma rays or any kinds of weird methods, or not with chemicals. So that means that some residue, some organic residue, might accompany your seeds. So flies also come from eggs that are in the seeds. They can actually come from everywhere, but we can control it much better.
Perfect. Well, there's time for questions in the Boral part of the program. So I'm going to hand the program to Janneke for a second. And hopefully Janneke knows why I'm doing this.
No, Joe, I'm sorry.
No.
So if these were Twente people, I would be saying something now.
I lost my, oh, wow. Yes, well, oh, this is really bad. We have beautiful, beautiful socks. Oh, Joe, yes. Jesus Christ, hang on.
We don't have socks at the moment.
I could show the Twente ones, but I think they'd appreciate Delft ones more.
Oh, I did a big cleanup. Yes, so what we have for you guys, Anneke and Remco, is we have beautiful limited edition TU Delft socks We only have those out to, yay.
That one.
Help desk.
Nice.
Oh, there they are.
So look, so we will send them to you as a big thank you for your time and effort and a really interesting story. Yes, so they will
Thank you very
become
much.
Thank you for
Thanks.
having us.
Barcelona, even though you don't wear them. We hope at some time when the weather gets cold again.
At the moment, no.
Not in winter time it gets cold.
You can wear them with pride because yeah, they're not for sale. They're only for alumni who voluntarily give their time and talent and network to back to the alumni community. So thank you so much for for sharing your story with us.
Was our pleasure,
Yes.
or is our pleasure.
And by the way, we had something on the chat, some people saying, oh, this is really interesting. I'll pop by your store someday. Is the store actually open?
Always make an appointment first.
Yeah, or
because-
just let us know when you come by.
Yeah.